Alright, so this is gonna be our second Hate Us episode. We got a donation for $10 to watch a bad movie and to talk about it. How did you feel about this movie? Actually, why don't you introduce what the movie is?
So this movie is Silkwood from the 80s.
Yeah, I think it was 83.
This is a movie that I had not previously seen, but I had heard the name of the movie.
Oh, okay.
And I think we had it on VHS at some point, but I never saw it, and I had no idea what it was about.
Yeah, I don't think this is the first time I've even heard about it, was going into this one.
Oh, okay.
But
I didn't know I didn't know who was in it or what or anything, but.
So what are your overall first impressions before we really get into it?
First impressions, I was not excited about the Cher aspect. But it didn't turn out to be so bad.
Yeah, I actually didn't even really recognize her as Cher until about halfway. I was like, oh no, that's Cher.
Her face looks real-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, this was before a lot of plastic surgery.
Yes.
And Meryl Streep, I had to look it up, because I was trying to figure out who a different actor was. And then it wasn't until I looked it up that I realized that Meryl Streep was the main actress.
Was it Kurt Russell?
Yeah, Kurt Russell is the main actress. Now, I knew who Kurt Russell was. I knew who Craig T. Nelson was. Now I can't remember the guy's name. Is that the guy with the dark hair who was making the Indian joke?
Oh, no, that is, I don't know his name, but as soon as I saw him, I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, is he also the guy from Tremors?
Kevin Bacon?
Yes, that was Kevin Bacon, right?
Yeah, no, that wasn't Kevin Bacon. What is that guy's name?
Fred Ward.
That's his name, Fred Ward? That's who I had to look up.
So is that him in the movie?
I don't think so. I guess so. Yep. Known for Tremors.
Yeah, right on.
Also,
yeah, I thought so.
Road Trip, The Player, and Escape from Alcatraz. That's his top 4.
I've never seen any of those, but I do recognize him as something.
I think he's in a lot of things.
I think so.
He's got 88 credits.
Interesting.
But there was a lot of people in Silkwood that I recognized and know and are decent actors. Which is surprising because Silkwood was so bad.
It was, I'll just say I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would, but it still wasn't great.
Yeah. So here, my problem with Silkwood, the movie, is it had potential of being really good.
It had real potential. I was a little disappointed.
Yeah. Cause they had good actors. I don't really know the director. I don't know what else he's done, but it wasn't like it was a cheap movie. It wasn't like it felt like someone made a movie who didn't really know how to make a movie. But also, it is 30 years old, so maybe he knew how to make a good movie back then and it just hasn't held up. But I don't feel like that's the case.
He did The Graduate.
Okay. That was another slow one.
I never saw it.
It's regarded really well, The Graduate, but the pacing is so weird.
Well, that's the same as this movie. The pacing was a little strange.
Well, everyone would say their line, then there would be a beat, then the next person would talk, then there'd be a beat, then the next person would talk, and then there'd be a beat. And then it was just oh, come on, guys. Squeeze it together a little bit more. Let's not have so many awkward pauses. Every scene was way too long. And this movie is 2 hours and 10 minutes long.
I know, as soon as I pulled that up, I was like, oh no.
And this could have easily, story-wise, this could have been a 30-minute show.
Hour and a half.
Not 30 minutes. It could have been cut down so much and been way more powerful than 2 hours and 10 minutes. Like,
it felt like they couldn't decide what kind of movie they wanted it to be. Did they want it to be about this working class lady or this conspiracy theory movie? Like, it was a weird mix of both.
yeah.
And it went from like being one to like flipping a switch and being the other, like immediately.
Mm. Well, cause I was saying I got halfway through and I felt like the movie hadn't even started yet. They were still establishing people. They were still setting up story. Like, I was like, come on, this does not need to be this long. That first hour could have been whittled down to 10 minutes. Like,
nothing happened at all.
You establish who she is, her relationships with her friends and her boyfriend, and that there's issues at the plant.
Yeah. You
get that done in 10 minutes, and then you can tell the whole story from that point on, her getting contaminated, her, finding out that she's sick, that she's, afraid of dying. Like, everything else could have happened. But they're like focusing on these moments that just did not land.
Yeah, like you said, it did seem to have potential, and then it just didn't fully take off.
Like, I would really like to see this movie remade now with all the same actors, but just like shortened, like cleaned up, and let the actors actually kind of act and not be so wooden and stale the whole time. And just like, I think this could be a really good movie. It just did not work, this one. And the hard part about, the first Hate Us movie we did was, Steel Magnolias, which was bad.
I'm falling asleep just thinking about the name of that movie.
It was bad, but at least it had like some fun parts or things that were like fun to make fun of. But this one was just it was a struggle to watch it.
I felt like Steel Magnolias was a struggle for me more than this one.
Oh, really?
It's just so boring, and the accents, oh my gosh, don't even get me started on the accents.
Well, the accents in this one were really bad too.
Yeah, but they weren't so like over dramatic. They were just weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like they were pretty heavy. Like, everyone's interaction in this movie was so strange too. Like
the relationship that really kind of threw me off a lot was between Meryl Streep and Cher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like they were best friends and roommates, but then like they'd just go through these weird scenes where they almost like don't like each other. It felt like.
Yeah. It was
really hard to tell what was going on.
There was no consistency from scene to scene with the relationships. Like, one minute they'd be happy, the next they'd be, at each other's throat. But it was like, there was no, you never knew what their relationship was when they were on the scene together until something happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird, man. It was kind of disappointing, like, knowing the story, cause this is all based on a true story, which is about this woman who worked for what was it? It wasn't a nuclear power plant, right? It was
no, it was, I don't even know what they did. Some kind of plutonium something.
Yeah. They were making plutonium fuel capsules or fuel. I didn't really get that part, but basically she works in this place where
they didn't bother explaining it.
Yeah. They didn't have enough time. They needed to have 2 different scenes of someone blowing a bubble gum bubble and letting it pop on their face. Like a full, 15 seconds dedicated to it twice.
And then we had to watch them, clean the person's face.
Yeah. Now, was there music in this movie? I don't think there was any music, right?
I don't know. I didn't even think about that.
But
I'm sure there was some kind of underscore.
I don't think there was. I think it was all just natural sound. And I think that was...
There was the song at the end.
Yes, which was not good.
No, who sang that?
I assume Cher.
I thought so too, but I don't...
But I'm not sure.
It sounded a little cracky.
Yeah.
Pitchy.
But I think having no music cause there would be like a few minute long scenes, multiple minute long scenes where, am I saying, why am I having such a hard time saying that? There was a few scenes that were multiple minutes long that didn't have any dialogue, also didn't have any music, but they would just be like making looks at each other, and you had to just like infer what they were thinking or feeling, and it was just like, you don't need to do that for every scene. You know what I mean? Like, it felt, I'm not trying to, like, I'm not a director or a filmmaker or anything of that nature, but it just came off as very amateurish that they would leave in too much of every scene. Everything was like just a
little bit too long.
Yeah. Like it felt like, there was a lot you could trim out.
Oh yes.
Where you could, really condense this down and get it into a good movie. Like that's my biggest frustration with this is that
get this thing to 90 minutes, you got yourself a movie.
Yeah. Like it's not even like, oh, this movie is so bad I hate it. It was like, this movie had so much potential and it got wasted.
Yeah.
Cause the story is good. The story is interesting. The actors are all great. Like there's no reason for this movie to be so bad. And there's no reason for this movie to be so long. Like
my guess is it's the director.
I mean, 2 hours and 10 minutes. That's a choice.
Yeah.
Like that's like, oh, we're going to make this a long movie. And there was no reason for that. There wasn't enough story in the movie. I think there was enough story in real life to fill that, but there wasn't enough in the movie. And I don't know if that was because they wanted to stay true to the story. They didn't want to like change things or add things or whatever, but like either make it shorter or add more relational
good
tension.
Stuff.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
Cause they like kind of touched upon that Craig T. Nelson was this creep, but
yeah. And that was another thing. I couldn't figure out what that guy was. But before we go further on the Craig, I will say that I did some research.
Okay.
Meryl Streep is the one who's saying Amazing Grace at the end.
Oh, okay.
Which I kind of thought too, because as I'm watching, I'm like, it would make the most sense for Cher to do it. But I feel like if this is Cher singing, then this is embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't very good. Also, another issue I had with that final scene was...
Oh, I had a few issues with the final scene, but...
So she leaves Kurt Russell, right? And then they start singing when she's leaving. She goes to the meeting and, meets everyone. Leaves, is on her way to meet with the reporter, and then crashes. Then they replay her leaving in the same song.
That was so weird. That threw me for a second. So it showed her headstone right at the cemetery.
Yeah.
And then the next one was like her like standing at the car.
Yes.
And for a split second I thought she faked her death. That's what this is. She's still alive.
Nope.
The way it was cut together, it was like we just saw that scene 10 seconds ago.
Yeah. But now we have to see it again.
Being a flashback.
We have to see it again, but now in slow motion. To like.
Yeah.
And it was just like, why? There's so many other scenes. Like if it's supposed to be like a memory of her or something like that, like just go back.
Any other scene. There was, 2 hours worth of it.
Yeah. So that was frustrating. But yeah.
I didn't care for that.
So getting back to the Craig, like you were saying.
Craig. What was his character?
So he was the boss of her new department she got into.
The metallurgy, I don't know how to say the word, but it's a thing.
And
metallurgy?
I don't remember.
I think that might be it. Really, I don't know though. It's metalworks.
Yeah. And so there's one scene where Cher is in his office and he like puts his feet up on the desk to like block her. And she's like, don't even try it. Yeah. She's like, try it with Karen or something like that, which was weird. But like, he was a jerk, right? And he always comes on to her or whatever. But he didn't, in the scene, in what the movie is showing, he didn't really do anything for her to respond that way, which didn't make any sense. You know, like, okay, yeah, you put your feet up on the desk, that's kind of a jerk move, but it did not come off as like, oh, he's trying to seduce her. You know what I mean?
Unless he just does this same move like every single day and she's just tired of it.
But what I'm saying is, as an audience member,
yeah, that's
like it
my
was
first impression's not like this guy's hitting on me because he got his feet up.
Yeah, he just seemed like, oh well, he's just a jerk. Like it just seemed it appeared like he was just trying to be inconvenient to her, not like, hey, how's it going? Like
he didn't even say anything.
But this movie was so bad, man.
So I can't tell what his character was or what it was supposed to be, and if it was just like him, he didn't have good direction, so he didn't really know what he was supposed to be doing, or if that was his choice to be that way. I don't know.
Yeah, what I feel like was they wanted to make a movie that felt like a documentary, and so everyone was toned down. And they let scenes go on too long to make it feel like, oh, you're just watching these people's lives. This is how things would actually happen. But the problem was the emotion never made any sense. Like,
nope.
They'd be acting one way, and then it was like they would just flip a switch and be acting a completely different way. And there was no, logic behind their reactions to things. Like, I don't know. It was very, very strange to me.
So maybe you can explain this, and maybe it's something I missed or they didn't explain. The lady, I don't know what her name was, but it was like the first lady who got contaminated and they had to shower her down.
Thelma, the old lady?
Yeah, the older woman. What was the reason for the wig?
I think
she just had a wig?
I think, and now I could be wrong, but I think her hair is falling out because of being exposed to the radiation. I think that's what you're supposed to understand from that.
That's what I was thinking, but they
never said anything about it.
No, and she made a comment like something along the lines of like, I let my daughter have my good wig or something weird like that.
I don't remember that. I do remember her.
Is that a thing?
I do remember her saying that her daughter is dying next to a colored person?
Yeah.
And nothing was said. No, like, there was no response from, Meryl Streep's character. Either it wasn't she didn't affirm it or, like, reject the response. It was just like, the character said it, and it just sat there, and nothing happened. And I was like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. Like, I don't know if what the movie is trying to put forward. Like, oh, this is just how people talk. This is just real life. This is how the movie feels. This is a good thing. This is a bad thing.
Set not a racist tone, but like maybe this is a racist generation or a racist part of the country. Because where did this even take place? Did it say?
Yeah, where did it take place? I don't remember.
But then that was like the only mention of race whatsoever.
It depends. Now, I don't know your stance on this, but there was a whole lot of Confederate flags going on.
Oh, well, yeah, there was a bunch of flags. This is true.
And so, like, when when she said the thing about, her daughter dying next to colored people, I was like, I don't know if this is like in support of that racism or against it. Like, I don't know if they're trying to make it, seem bad. She seemed
upset about that. Like, I can't believe this is happening.
Oh yeah, no, she was definitely racist. But I was saying, I don't know if the movie saw that in a good light or a bad light. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Well, when is this movie supposed to take place?
74. And then in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Well,
I guess.
I'm looking it up. But when the Confederate flags came on, I was like, oh, maybe it's not as much against the racism as I thought. But I don't know. Like, I don't know what Like if I was watching this in 83, I don't know
No,
if
I
any of
don't
that
think
stuff would stand out.
No, I don't think so. I don't think if you watch this movie 10 years ago, any of that would stand out.
Yeah. But it definitely stands out now.
Well, it does.
And, it just seemed like very weird choices to have that line in there. If it would have served anything, if it would have had a point, I would have been fine with it. Like, I don't think it's racist to have a racist character in a movie if there's a reason for it.
If there's a reason,
yeah.
Not just to do it.
Yeah, but like, it just felt very, I don't know, it just felt very pointless.
Very out of place.
Yeah.
But what I want to circle back to the wig.
Uh-huh.
So then when the lady is getting her shower and, getting scrubbed down.
Yeah. So they have to go through a radiation detector, every time they leave their workstation. And if it goes off, then guys in, suits, kind of like in Monsters, Inc.
2319. Yeah.
They come and grab her and then rush her off to the shower. And now, were they using, steel brushes? Or was
That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
That looked incredibly painful.
Yeah. And so they just scrub everything with these brushes. They may not have been steel, but it definitely looked like it.
And it's not like they were being gentle. It could have been cotton, but they were just jabbing her with it.
And, well, because they're trying to take off that top layer of skin to remove any of the radiation. And, it does not seem like that is very effective. I think the movie is definitely in opposition to the company.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're trying to make the company look bad, but they never straight out said anything. So it's you kind of have to you take your own, feelings about it, but it definitely seemed like it had an agenda of anti this company.
Yeah, very pro-union.
Yes.
But the reason I keep circling back to the wig is just because I couldn't tell if there was supposed to be a point, because when she was getting her shower, it did a dramatic zoom in on the wig and Meryl Streep looking at the wig. I'm like, is this supposed to mean something? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I think because the whole movie was kind of saying all these people are told that it's not dangerous to work near all this radiation, but it actually is. And so they showed that, this wig is because she's losing her hair. But again, it could have, I don't like heavy exposition movies with a lot of exposition where you just have a character who just says
but you gotta
everything.
have some.
You have to have some. And,
just a little bit would have been nice.
And there was none, or hardly any in this movie. And it was tough.
Also, at that point, why are you still working here? You can't work anywhere else?
Well, Kurt Russell left.
Exactly.
And, him and Cher got off without any radiation, but Karen Silkwood got it inside her lungs, got it all throughout her body, and was dying. It looked like she was going to end up dying from the radiation poisoning, but ended up dying in a car accident that turned out to be suspect.
So, yeah, let's talk about this end scene. I was disappointed. I knew as soon as she was leaving, I was like, okay, she's definitely gonna die.
Yeah.
I didn't know how or why or whatever. I was like, she's gonna die. And then I felt like they didn't show enough of the company being shady for me to truly believe that they wanted her dead.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't believe that that's what happened, but
yeah, and so not even talking about real life things, but just based on the movie.
Yeah.
The company did not come off as evil. Craig T. Nelson came off as a bad guy, hiding stuff, but his boss always seemed reasonable.
Yeah, Bruce McGill.
Yes. he always came across as like,
he just seemed irritated.
Yeah. Like
his employees are going to the union. You know, obviously the bosses don't like that, but that was kind of the extent of it. It felt like, not like there was cover up and they know that their employees are dying and they don't care because they're making money. It didn't feel like that. And maybe that's how it was in real life. But they just didn't portray it like that.
Well, she came off, the character, Karen, came off much worse, I thought, than the company, with all her sneaking around and trying to steal information and like taking advantage of her coworkers and stuff like that. And again, I'm not trying to make a judgment on the actual person or the actual events. I just feel like the movie like made this, like the way they told this story came off as she was the bad guy.
Yeah.
And the company, like, it just felt so weird because she got alienated from everyone. Everyone like hated her because she was, you know, stealing information and like being secretive and doing all this stuff, which could have happened, could have been true. But the motivation behind any of it came off very strange because she was trying to impress that guy, Steve from New York, and ended up cheating on her boyfriend with him and like all this weird stuff. Like it was just,
well, what stood out to me, what kind of bothered me was once they detected the radiation, I don't remember exactly what happened, but they ended up going to her house and checking everything.
Yeah.
And then they found like the different amounts of radiation like around, and she like immediately jumped to saying that someone put plutonium in her urine. In
her, the container.
And I thought like, it feels like they didn't lead up, they didn't build it up enough for me to believe that was possible.
Yeah.
So at that point I started thinking, I was like, she's crazy. And like, it's like messing with her mind and everything that's happening isn't really happening and it's all in her head.
Yeah.
That's what I started to think until the end. And then maybe she died. She just died.
She just crashed.
Like, nothing happened. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so the accident was ruled single car accident. So that's saying like she just crashed. She, you know, for some reason, well, so they found like sleeping pills and alcohol in her blood.
Right, which that makes sense. But then why show that car approaching her as if it was gonna like run her off the road or?
Well, because that's the question is, in real life, there's a lot of controversy about how she died. People are saying that her car was rear-ended and it pushed her off the road. But then the police are like, well, the evidence is showing that she had taken painkillers and drank, and so she probably just fell asleep at the wheel and crashed and died. But then she had documents at that meeting, the union meeting, and she was on her way to meet the reporter. And those documents were missing. So they're saying like it's a conspiracy that she was murdered and the documents were stolen. And so there's no actual real life resolution to what truly happened. It was considered a single car accident, but there's this conspiracy behind everything. And I think the family actually sued the company and won, but I don't know what they sued them for. I don't think it was related to the death, but I think it was related to the way the company handled everything else.
Can you sue somebody for that?
I don't think it was related to her death. I think it was related to the company's bad practices and stuff like that. Like covering things up and like making people feel like they're not actually sick or that they're getting taken care of. And because what I took away from the movie was how she ended up with radiation. She thought that someone had put, or contaminated the pee cup or whatever.
The jar.
But it turned out she had it. She was radioactive, that she had radiation poisoning. And so she was spreading it herself around the house. And so no one would actually like poisoned her with it unless it had happened before. Like since this is a real story and there's no real answers, it makes it tough for the movie to be like, oh, this is what happened, or this is clear, like, to show a clear story.
Yeah.
But they don't even allude to, oh, maybe she was poisoned beforehand, or she did something that got the poison inside of her body, or working with Craig T. Nelson in that area was more dangerous. They didn't give you any options to think, oh, maybe this could have happened, or maybe this could have happened. It was just like, well, this happened. Here you go. And
here it is. Yeah.
And I understand it because it is a true story.
Yeah, there's only so much. You can't take liberties when you're based off a true story.
Yeah. Well, you shouldn't. I think a lot of people do. But
yeah, that's what I mean.
It's tough. It's tough to make a good movie if you're not, if you, like, because you could put forward, you could even have a character talk about it. You could have her, sitting down with her friends, be like, well, okay, so what could have happened? Like this moment had happened, or that moment had happened, or this thing was weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like something at least to give you an idea.
What I think, it almost goes back to what you were saying about it being like a documentary. Like, it's almost like they were afraid to, like, implicate anyone being truly at fault, whether it was the company or her own mistakes. Like, they're like, we don't want to point the finger, so we're just going to present what we know for sure and not, like, let it lean one way or the other.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It is a tough one to get through, though.
I mean, Kurt Russell was cool, but that's about it.
When you compare Meryl Streep, Cher, and Kurt Russell from them in this movie to them now, Kurt Russell looks like he's aged, but like maybe 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other two look like they've aged like a ton. Like they look like completely different people.
Yeah, Meryl Streep looks like she's aged probably 50 years, and Cher maybe 200.
Oh man.
She just looks, it's weird because growing up, my mom was always as far as I remember, kind of a fan of Cher, but I always remember her looking fake and having her, so like seeing her in this movie, it stood out to me, like, this doesn't look like Cher, even though that is the real Cher. Like, it looked fake.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is, what's something that you would compare watching this movie to in your real life?
Like when you start a new job and then they make you watch like 4 hours of orientation and safety related practices. That's what it felt like.
That is, this is unprecedented, but that is exactly 100% correct. Like, you completely nailed it on the head what watching this movie is like. It's all that OSHA training and taking those stupid tests. Yeah. This movie is just like that.
It's a safety video.
Yeah, it's a safety video. Or like driving school. But I think I think the safety video is more accurate.
That's how it felt.
Yeah. It was pretty bad. But yeah, so if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us out. You can reach out to us on Twitter at IcingThatPod. You can get a hold of me directly at AlanRJR.
And I am at Taylor E. Nixon.
And if you would like to help us, if you would like to support our show, you can go over to Patreon and you can vote for Taylor or I about who is a better person. Clearly I am, but some people want to cheat.
Explain clearly.
Or if you want to pick a bad movie for us to watch, you can also do that over on Patreon. If you donate towards the Hate Us category, you can choose a movie every month. We will sit down and watch it, and if it's bad like these, then we're gonna be honest. But
you know what's funny?
What's that?
And I'm probably gonna hear about this later. Is this bad movie category? These are movies that my mom likes. Like, she doesn't consider them bad movies.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Like, I don't know if this is her way of trying to get you to love the things that she loves, but...
Oh, it is 100%.
So far, 0 for 2.
Over 2. But I will say that this one, not as bad as... I can't even remember the name.
Steel Magnolias?
I almost said Silk Magnolias.
Yeah, I like this one. I have more anger towards Silkwood, but it's a better story. Yeah, Silkwood is a better story. I'm just angry at the way they made it. Where Steel Magnolias is pretty awful, but at least... Now, Cher versus Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton was in Steel Magnolias. Cher was in Silkwood. Who is the better actress?
Just using these two movies?
Yeah, just between these two movies.
I'm gonna have to say Cher.
Yeah. I enjoyed Dolly Parton. She was the only part about Steel Magnolias that I liked.
Oh, I like the other lady, the older one. I don't remember her name.
The catchphrase lady?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Before we stop, I want to bring up one more thing about Silkwood.
Yeah.
You tell me your thoughts. Just for a split second, I thought there's the car accident, right? And
yeah.
Meryl Streep dies. And then the next scene we see is like her car being towed through town. And there's like people like looking at it and seeing it all smashed up.
Yeah.
And then we see Cher, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, she sees it and she's got like a single tear going down her face. For a split second, I thought Cher was in on it. She was part of this conspiracy and she knew she was sending her friend to die. And like, she's not super upset because she knew, but she was still a little bit upset because that was her friend. And that would explain their love-hate relationship during the entire movie.
I think you are on the right track. I think you've gone too far past the station.
Okay.
They're on the plane and Karen Silkwood, Meryl Streep's character, is asking Cher's character, like, hey, did you tell the company about the x-rays? Did you?
Yeah.
And so she was being real coy about it. And so I think that she feels guilty in the way that she did tell the company, but I don't think she knew that she was
going to lead to her death.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
Maybe she feels guilty, like she caused it.
Yeah. But not like in, I was sending my friend to her death, but like in, this is kind of my fault. Like if I would have just been quiet, maybe this would have never happened.
Yeah, that makes more sense. But
also I think
she's behind it. She was that car driving.
She transformed into the car?
Yes.
Gotcha. But it was a huge event, and I think that the car was out in the forest for days. I could be wrong, but
really?
Yeah. So them removing everything, it wasn't like the next day. It was like after they did all the investigation and like figured things out, and then so I think everyone kind of knew that it had happened already. It wasn't like they just saw the car and then found out about the death. I think they knew about the death before the car ever got towed.
Yeah. Right.
But,
well, that's all I have.
Yeah. So you can go over to Patreon. You can support us there. You can follow us on Facebook. You can reach out to us on Twitter. Whatever you want to do, you are free to do it. You could never talk to us again, but you have to keep listening. That's the one.
You must.
The one rule. If you've listened this far, you have now signed an audible contract.
A lifelong contract. Yeah. You're in it for the long run, which is our deaths.
Yeah.